My friends, good day. News of the collapse of the United Kingdom comes in every few hours. It's hopeless. Personally, I still had maybe a little hope for 2026. I was telling myself that maybe it's a country that would return to some form of reason, but obviously no. It's a country that seems to be sinking from one madness to another. The latest one appeared today. They decided that the rural areas, the British rural areas, are too white. It's quite frightening. And so they're going to have to do something about it. They said that, for example, as long as there is a traditional English pub, which is actually the marker of these British villages. So these pubs where you can go have a beer, where you can go eat fish and chips, well, these pubs are perfect. Natural repellents by their very existence for people who come from Bangladesh, for example. What I'm saying is serious. This is not an exaggeration. So they will have to deal with it. They also need to get rid of the dogs in the rural area. So it's a country that's on a path of self destruction and on a path of vandalism. That means the decisions being made every day are decisions of cultural, economic, and social destruction. Actually, let me tell you something, the British have been deprived, maybe in some way, just like the French have been deprived of their identity, have been deprived of their national pride, have been deprived for many of their dignity, right? But let me tell you something, maybe that's my Marxist side. They have been deprived of the dialectical tool that allows them to analyze what's happening and that allows them to develop a discourse of resistance. They can't. For many, they're just in an individualism in which they've been isolated, they're atomized, they're there pedaling, 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 and then not wanting to look at what's happening around them. And besides, they would be incapable of making even a very basic analysis of what's happening in their own country. And that might be the most serious thing that's been done to them. Because at that point, there's no way to go back. The other reason why there's very little hope of going back is that it's a culture in the United Kingdom. It's a culture where people find fulfillment through obedience. People are very docile, very obedient. There are many reasons. There are many reasons that can explain this, but I'll give you one, for example. If you look at people who are capable of revolting, people who are capable of standing up, right? Well, for many, they died during the First World War, others during the Second World War. And well, we know this pattern, but we can even go back further. The British who are capable of revolting. They already revolted, they became Americans. They waged a war against their elites, and then they built the United States of America. What remains in the United Kingdom are people who culturally are under a culture of docility and obedience. So there is no limit to what can be done to them, and they will obey without resistance. And their elites know this. So, as its name suggests, it's a kingdom, hence United Kingdom. It means that the upper caste is a caste that inherits power from generation to generation. Those people, they will not change. Below them, they have the work done by a cast of people who come from top universities, Oxford, Cambridge, Eton. And these are people, whether they're left wing or right wing, who move in the same circles, who are involved in the same dirty business. You saw recently there was this Epstein affair. I'm not going to talk about it here. As they say in Latin, in French, non-convenience. There are reasons why I'm not talking about it here, but I should be able to speak about this on another platform at some point. So I was saying that today the United Kingdom is really collapsing by every objectively measurable metric. Socially, economically, culturally, on every level. And that's happened one decision at a time. The decisions being made are decisions that are openly in the direction of vandalism. Let me give you an example. In recent years, the country has become an extremely zealous climate theocracy, a climate theocracy. They decided that they will be the first country in the world to reach net zero and spend the money they have and the money they don't have to become a climate friendly country. The problem is they will certainly win this race because they're the only ones in this race. It's like if I start today, I tell you, look, I'm going to run and I'm going to come in first. Obviously, if I'm the only one running, I'm going to come in first. So they're heading towards collapse. The story, what we call warmism, the climate witnesses, it's a doctrine that was born in the United States, like many other nasty things we have in Europe. In Europe, we usually get the sewage from across the Atlantic. The Americans have the means to create ideological sewage, but they also have the means to clean it up. That's what they've done. They've moved on from this story now. The Americans work, they move forward. For example, you notice that, for instance, since they've started focusing on the race for artificial intelligence, you notice that they no longer talk about climate. Today, they need energy, they need data centers, they need nuclear, coal, gas, whatever it takes. By any means, they want to build square kilometers of data centers and power them. They no longer talk about climate. That story is over. They no longer take part in things like the COPs, that kind of stuff. They no longer participate. They have abandoned this ideology that they themselves created. Today, they've left it as a dark legacy to the Europeans, who are building their entire energy system on the cult of carbon. They capture carbon at the borders, they tax carbon, all that stuff. And if you build an economy, it's a heresy. You end up with a poor country. That's what's happening in European countries. Today, several international media outlets have called France a third world country, and this is just the beginning. This is going to make European countries poorer. And they will end up, as we say in Africa, they will end up like dogs with dogs. They will end up eating from the dog's bowl. It's intentional, it's decided at the top. Let me give you an example. Today it's winter. Over there, that's the northern hemisphere. Here, I'm in the southern hemisphere. The British are struggling to heat their homes, and businesses can't run their machines. Bankruptcies are skyrocketing, offshoring. I wonder who is still producing over there. Actually, this is all intentional and comes from the top. I'll explain why. Because of this, first you need to know the British are not citizens, they are subjects. So they are subject to the will of others. That's the first thing to remember. They don't have a constitution. That means their constitutional rights are whatever the current sovereign thinks. You have a caste, you have a sovereign, you have a caste around them. The opinion, instantaneous, of this caste represents your constitutional rights. The day the caste changes its mind, changes its whims, changes its direction, what you call your constitutional rights will change along with it. So this is where the country is heading. And France will follow the same path. The United Kingdom is the testing ground, and very soon after, the same things happen in France. Let me tell you, in the climate obsession, the country wants to impoverish its population. It's a planned impoverishment. At the top, they've taken a vow of poverty, but not for the elites. They're definitely not giving up their castles, helicopters, or private jets. They've decided that the population must become poor. But why? Let me tell you. There is a reason. Look, if you want people not to spend or not to emit carbon, so you have to stop them from engaging in carbon emitting activities. What are these activities? They're all acts of life. Driving a car, turning on the heat, cooking, eating, taking a shower, taking a bath, going on vacation, washing a t-shirt. I mean, everything you do, every action you take uses energy so it can be translated into carbon, right? How do you stop people from generating carbon? Well, of course, you can ask them. You can tell them, please don't go on vacation. Please don't take a plane. So you keep the money in your account. You don't use it. We can prove, we can demonstrate mathematically that if we follow the logic of carbon, carbon emissions depend on income. Someone who is a millionaire or who spends $1 million per month will obviously spend 1,000 times more carbon than someone who lives on 1,000 euros per month. Obviously, that's how it works. It's mathematical. So if we want to reduce the carbon footprint of the population, what's the best way to do it? It's to make them poorer. Obviously, you make them poorer. You're not going to tell them, listen, you have 20,000 euros in your account, but don't go on vacation. Don't spend 3,000 to go on vacation. No. You take away their 20,000 euros through confiscatory taxation, through inflation, through unemployment, you see. And there, actually, it's not that you have to tell them anymore. Yes, don't do it because it's virtuous not to do it because you have to save the planet, etc. No, you don't do that anymore. You leave them penniless, in misery. And obviously, for example, you're not going to tell them don't turn on the heating because it's bad for the planet. You make sure the bill is so expensive that they turn off the heating themselves. That's what's happening in the United Kingdom. I describe this story about France, the United Kingdom, Germany, and all that in the book Astrology. I invite you to read it. But beyond this eco scam, it's really a civilizational project of controlled collapse. They have decided that these countries must become poor. And once they become poor, they will achieve climate neutrality on their own. We have validation, for example, of what are called 15-minute cities. These are cities where, for example, let's take Oxford, we divide it into 6 zones, give annual permits, allowing you to move from one place to another, from one zone to another, a certain number of times. For now, to reduce resistance, they will start with 100 permits per year. That means you get a permit on January 1st and you have the right to drive from one zone to another in the city 100 times per year. Each time you pass, there are cameras that will record it. If you go over the 100 times, they start charging you. If you live in one zone and work in another, it's clear you can't go there. If you live in one zone and your children go to school in another, that's over. It's like dividing Paris, for example, or Lyon, it doesn't matter, into 6 large zones, and you're not allowed to go from one place to another. So that's what we call geofencing. It's digital fencing. It means they're going to put a fence around you like for cattle. They see us as cattle. So they're going to put a fence around us like for cattle, but instead of it being a fence with electricity or ditches or barbed wire, it'll be a fence with digital surveillance cameras that can scan you, scan your face, facial recognition, scan your car's license plates, and take money directly from your account. If you ever breach that geofence, moreover, what's going to happen is it'll be reduced. The first year, they'll tell you 100 times. After that, they'll tell you 50 times, 20 times. Then it'll be 0 times. You have to pay 50 euros to go, for example, I don't know, from the 18th district to the 13th, you have to pay 50 euros. So for people who are rich, it'll be paid freedom. That means you won't have the right to move around your country as you want anymore. It will be a paid freedom. You buy it, okay? You buy your freedom. Those who are rich, they say, well, I'll spend 50,000 euros a year for freedom. And those who don't have that money, they'll stay stuck in their areas, you see? So the island of the United Kingdom is turning into a prison island. It's a prison-like world that's being put in place. So now it's going to collapse. It's going to collapse economically. That's clear. It's going to collapse. People will fight for bread. People will fight for all of that. But it's a choice that's cynically decided from above. And the population, when you have an obedient population, imagine you have an obedient and docile population on one side, and on the other side, you have cynical and perverse people without limits. That's the result you're going to get. And when we voted for Brexit, it was, if you want, look, I'll tell you a bit about what happened. It's that at first, the cynicism of the national authorities was hidden behind that of the European Union. So the British thought the problems came from the European Union. So what did they do? They voted for Brexit. Once they voted for Brexit, they started to notice that compared to what they have in London, von der Leyen is actually nice. And so now, indeed, the problem is that they were given full sovereignty. So we have, I think that Brexit in the United Kingdom was more of an elite project, not a people's project. So what happened is that the elites wanted to have a free hand because they felt that the destruction at the speed it was leading Europe was too slow. I think Europe has become better since the United Kingdom left. I think that one of the most destructive, most radical, most extremist countries in this project of decivilization is indeed the United Kingdom. So the United Kingdom wanted to destroy and destroy itself, but it thought that van der Leyen was doing it too slowly. So every time we have to ask the European Commission, wait, pass laws, have them approved by 27 countries and all that, it's too slow. If we are free, if we have sovereignty, we can go faster. And that's what they did. Once they took sovereignty, after that, they doubled their efforts. And that's what we're seeing today. So I voted for Brexit and I end up leaving. But that's how it is. What do you want? What do you want me to say? That's it. You can come back another time anyway. If you've watched this far, please subscribe and let me remind you that my book is available on Amazon. This one is even available in Audible format for those who prefer listening to books instead of reading them. See you in the next one. See you very soon.